engines. From outside the terminal, passengers only see an aircraft standing still for a few hours before the next flight. But behind that,
the young East Asian female engineer slowly walks along the aircraft body, using an inspection light reflected across tiny rivets. Check the voltage on the auxiliary line, diagram 9.
Looks good. Green light confirmed.
The matte gray narrow-body aircraft rests silently beneath the white lights of the maintenance hangar, but inside it, countless systems are being checked step by step.
Asians. The strange thing is that most of the most important work in aviation exists in things nobody sees and nobody.
People often think aircraft engineering exists in giant engines or massive wings on the runway, but in reality, the young Caucasian male engineer pauses before a technical checklist filled with data, then continues reviewing every small item with heavy concentration.
And from that moment, the central question of the entire story begins to appear. Why does aviation spend most of its time on work?
In normal operation, a commercial aircraft is designed so that everything works so smoothly that passengers forget a highly complex technical structure.
The young black female engineer continues inspecting electrical wiring systems running deep inside a narrow, dark technical compartment.
The young workers replace tiny components hidden deep inside the aircraft body, even though many of those parts appear almost perfect to them. In aviation, maintenance does not begin when something breaks, but long before failure ever has a chance to appear in reality. The matte gray narrow-body aircraft continues resting beneath the clean white lights of the hangar.
Some components are replaced simply because they have reached their regulated operating hours, even when they are still functioning completely normally at that moment.
This creates a very different condition in aviation engineering, where success is not measured by repairing what has failed but by preventing failure from appearing in the first place.
The young South Asian female engineer quietly marks each small task as completed on the electronic checklist, while the
But here a major contradiction begins to appear. If passengers cannot see this technical work, then how can they understand its true importance? People are easily impressed by giant engines, high speeds, or dramatic takeoffs, but they almost never pay attention to the silent inspection hours. The young male engineer is inspecting a very small metallic area near the wing-body connection, where an extremely tiny crack,
Young workers open and inspect technical systems hidden deep inside the electronic compartment, even though from the outside the aircraft still appears completely new and stable.
The most difficult thing to understand about aviation engineering is that many of its most important tasks create no visible changes that passengers can immediately notice. After hours of inspection, the aircraft may look exactly the same as before, but inside it has undergone hundreds of extremely complex technical verification procedures. The young female engineer continues checking pressure readings and system warnings, even though no obvious abnormal signals are visible. That is precisely why many people outside the industry struggle to understand why aircraft maintenance consumes enormous amounts of time, manpower, and cost. The contradiction becomes clearer that aviation invests enormously in things that are almost invisible, while most passengers only see the final result of a normal flight. And finally, the central question of the entire video becomes clear. What makes these invisible tasks more important than what the human eye can actually see? The answer lies in the core nature of aviation engineering, where every serious danger often begins with signs so small they are almost invisible in the earliest stage. The young male engineer stares intensely at vibration data displayed on the maintenance screen, because even the smallest deviation can...
Aviation does not wait for problems to become obvious before reacting, because by the time passengers can see a problem it may already be too late to repair safely.
The young female engineer checks each tiny electrical connector with a handheld inspection light, because a loose connection almost invisible. Young workers continue replacing components that have not completely failed, because aviation engineering operates according to safety limits, rather than waiting for failure to happen.
That is why most aircraft engineering exists in invisible form, because its true purpose is to prevent failures before people ever have the chance.
The matte gray, narrow-body aircraft continues resting beneath cold industrial lights while inside it,
The young male engineer reviews every line of the dense checklist. Because in aviation oversight rarely begins with a major
Aviation builds its entire safety system on the principle that the most dangerous thing is often the thing hardest to see.
A tiny crack, a slight pressure deviation, or a loose electrical connection can sometimes be far more dangerous than major.
The young Middle Eastern female engineer quietly closes the technical panel after hours of detailed inspection,
And that is the true nature of invisible aircraft engineering, where success is measured by the number of failures that never happened, rather than by what people can see with their own eyes. Compared to many other industries, aviation engineering has one enormous difference. It never allows safety to depend on luck or delayed reactions.
In many industries, people usually repair systems only after failures become obvious. But aviation instead builds.
The young male engineer continues reviewing maintenance data in the quiet hangar behind the terminal, where every action moves at a calm pace but remains extremely strict. The young female engineer compares technical values against international maintenance standards because of the Steisterd. The invisibility of aircraft engineering does not come from unimportance, but from the opposite. It is so important. People usually remember a smooth flight, but very few remember the engineers and workers who spent hours inspecting things the naked eye could never recognize.
The matte gray narrow-body aircraft is finally closed completely, and prepared to leave the hangar in almost exactly the same condition as when it entered.
But the true difference lies inside, where hundreds of hidden dangers have been detected, handled, or prevented before they ever had the chance to become real problems.
The young male engineer and the young female engineer quietly leave the maintenance area while the young workers complete the final inspection. There is no applause, no dramatic moment, and nobody outside truly knows what exactly happened during those many hours behind the terminal.
Dr. Lund in 10. But it is precisely those invisible tasks that allow millions of passengers every day to board aircraft without ever thinking about the
Invisible aircraft engineering is essentially the art of seeing the things most people would completely overlook in ordinary life.
The matte gray narrow-body aircraft slowly rolls out from the maintenance area behind the terminal.
And in the end, the most important thing aviation wants to protect is not the glamorous image of an aircraft on the runway.
Because in aviation, the things people cannot see are sometimes exactly what keeps everything operating safely every single day.
Because in aviation, the things people cannot see are sometimes exactly what keeps everything operating safely every single day.